Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. HTM here with an updated solo Stamina Nightblade build for the Elder Scrolls Online. This time we're updating the Brawler build, an in-your-face stamina melee focused character. Very strong single target AoE and dot damage, as well as great defensive skills. Now updated with an automatic damage shield set for even easier soloing. We'll talk about an extremely easy to play 1-bar version of the build, as well as a 2-bar skill setup for even more damage, and all that's coming up right now. All right, everybody, here we are back on the solo Stamina Nightblade build for the Elder Scrolls Online. This is an update to my earlier Brawler build, and we'll be taking a look at basically a 1-bar setup, very easy, simple to play, and then of course we'll talk about 2-bar setup if you would like to do more damage. But that being said, let's go ahead and buff up on just the single bar build and see what this would look like in terms of your max stats. So sitting at about 10,000 max magicka, 22,000 max health, and about 33,000 max stamina. Recovery is decent at about 1,200. Weapon damage at base is about 3,000. That'll be closer to 4.5, almost 5,000, depending on your race once we are fully buffed. 58% weapon critical, and then our resistance is sitting at about 16,000 here. With our shadow buff, we'll be over 20k physical and spell resistance, so that's very nice for soloing. In terms of your attribute points, of course, we want 64 points into max stamina, since we are a Stamina Nightblade build. I am running the blue food for max stam, max health, using the Lover Mundus currently, just to increase the overall penetration on the build. And then Minor Berserk, we have a couple other passive buffs, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. Now, what race would work best for this build? Well, I think there's a few options. In terms of soloing, if that's what you're interested in, I actually prefer Nord for a few reasons. One is going to be the Rugged passive. This just gives us a flat 4,000 extra physical and spell resistance. Really nice for increasing your overall defense. Since this is a medium armor build, it would be a little bit squishy otherwise, though we do have our damage shields as well, which are going to help a lot with that. Now, Nord also has the maximum health here, an extra 1,000 max health. Great for solo builds. You also get the max stamina, since this is a Stamina Nightblade. You get the extra ultimate recovery from the Stalwart passive. I mean, overall, Nord is just really good for soloing, even for PvP if you're interested in that. I always like the Nord in ESO. But of course, if you want more damage, then definitely check out Orc or Dark Elf. Khajiit is also a nice option for the extra crit damage. In terms of the potion, you can actually just use basic trash potions. The basic stamina potion is totally fine. You can also use something like tri-stat potions. That'll help with some tougher boss encounters. But on the 1-bar setup, you may also want just a weapon power potion, or you can use the Alliance War potions. So I think that covers the basics. Let's go ahead and jump into the item sets next, starting with our first 5-piece set. So I wanted to update this build a little bit because I had used New Moon previously on the front bar, and New Moon is still not a terrible option. It's decent, but it did get nerfed slightly in terms of the overall damage. So I've been checking out some other offensive sets for the Nightblade, and I'm taking a look at Ravager. The Ravager set is an old school set. It is from Cyrodiil, though you can most likely find a weapon and 3 pieces of jewelry on Guild Traders pretty easily at this point. But this does give very nice overall stats for soloing. We got the weapon critical, we got the max health, we got weapon damage, so all of that is great for a solo Nightblade. And then check out the 5-piece bonus here. Each time you attempt to reduce the target's physical or spell resistance, you gain a stack of Ravager for 5 seconds, increasing your weapon damage, and you can have 4 stacks at the most. So when you add up the stacks, that's actually pretty close to 600 weapon damage on your character. Now you may be wondering about how you would achieve that on a Nightblade, and that actually comes from your main spammable ability on the Stamina Nightblade called Surprise Attack. This actually has a resistance debuff built into the skill. Now, while I was testing this, it's actually interesting the way this is currently. The armor shred only happens, right, if you are flanking the enemy, so from the side or from behind. But the key here in the description of Ravager, I think, is each time you attempt to reduce the target's physical or spell resistance. So This works no matter which direction you're facing the target with surprise attack. You can be in front of the enemy, you can be face tanking the enemy, and surprise attack still does a resistance check, which will proc Ravager, again, no matter which direction you're facing. So it is very easy. All you need to do is hit surprise attack 4 times, and then you're at your max weapon damage, which, like I said, is about 600 unbuffed. Fully buffed, that'll be closer to 800 or more based on our buffs. So definitely an interesting option on the solo Nightblade. Like I said, New Moon Acolyte is still fine. It's really not that big of a nerf. You could also go with something like Briarheart. Briarheart got a little bit of a buff in terms of the uptime. So those would be probably my top 3 options here. But if you want to run the Ravager set, I would recommend just the front bar two-handed. Maul is going to be probably best for soloing because of the extra armor debuff that Mauls get in terms of your weapon passives. And then just 3 pieces of jewelry. Now you can change these to whatever traits you want. They come default as a healthy trait. So my preferred traits are going to be 2 infused, and then 1 bloodthirsty, 2 weapon damage enchants, and then 1 stamina recovery. And again, that is for a solo setup. So that gives us our damage. For the second 5-piece set, I wanted to focus on something defensive. And you may have been wondering, what is this blue damage shield aura around my character? Well, it's actually this old set called Parabellum, and this is getting buffed in the Stonethorn DLC with a pretty nice buff. Check out what this does. So we get max stamina, max health, max stamina. Then for the 5-piece, every 10 seconds you gain a damage shield for free. Absorbs about 8,000 damage. Now this is affected by champion points, so the more CP you put into your damage shields, the higher this will go. And like I said, this is now automatic. It used to be like you had to not take damage for this to proc. This just always procs every 10 seconds. So really nice defensive set on a solo stamina build. Stamina builds don't get access to a lot of damage shields other than the Brawler skill itself. So every 10 seconds you get that extra shield for free no matter what. It's a great defensive option for any stamina build, really. But I like this on my Nightblade Brawler build because we're really in the face of the enemy. And that's just going to make us even more tanky. This does come from Maelstrom Arena. You can run this just on normal mode to get these pieces. Finally, for our monster set, I just want to pump up the damage a little bit on this build. So I'm running 2 pieces of Slime Craw. That, of course, gives us the extra weapon critical, which is nice on the Nightblade. Then we get the Minor Berserk at all times. So that's an 8% damage increase. In terms of the weights here, I do like at least 1 heavy on a solo build, though you could go maybe both medium if you want to run 7 total medium pieces. That would be totally fine. But for a little bit extra health and armor, run a heavy helmet and a medium shoulder. Again, stamina on everything, divines on everything if you can. So that is the 1-bar setup. Let's talk about the skills that would make that work. Starting off with Power Extraction. This is from the Siphoning skill line. The last ability that you get here, and this is a very strong AoE skill for the Nightblade. It also has a nice effect against the enemy. It reduces their weapon and spell damage by 200 for 8 seconds. It also gives us Major Brutality and Sorcery. So that's that 20% extra weapon damage buff for free, which is going to be really nice, especially on the 2-bar setup. That means we really don't need to run weapon power potions or rally or anything like that. We can get the buff for free from Power Extraction, so I definitely like that skill. Next up, we got Relentless Focus. This is from the Assassination skill line. That's the last ability that you get there, and this is getting changed in the Stonethorn DLC as well, just so you understand. This used to be a very good defensive buff, but now they've changed it into more of an offensive buff. So the stacking is the same. You basically get 1 stack for every light or heavy attack. You can get up to 5 stacks total. But each stack is now going to do 2% critical damage and critical healing. So again, that used to be damage reduction, but now we're focused on offense. So it's still fine for soloing. The nice thing about this too is that you do get a bit of a burst heal. You can see there at the end of the tooltip, it heals for 33% of the damage dealt. If you're in melee range, which of course we will be on the setup. So a decent heal, about 4 or 5k every 5 seconds. It's going to be very nice, especially on the 1-bar setup. Because that's going to be your main way of burst healing. Now, next up, we've got Dark Shade. That's from the Shadow skill line. And this is one of my favorite abilities for soloing, actually, because it does AoE Minor Maim. What that means is it debuffs every enemy in the area, making them do 15% less damage for 4 seconds. and that's basically up all the time. So for any type of solo build, that extra damage reduction on the enemy, that really helps a lot. So I definitely recommend you pick this up. We also get some nice passives for having this slotted. And that is, again, in the Shadow skill line. That's the last skill that you get there. Next ability is going to be our main spammable on this build. That is Surprise Attack, again, from the Shadow skill line. That's the first ability there. You want to morph it to Surprise Attack for the Stamina morph. Does very good damage. In this update to the build, I'm actually using this instead of Brawler. In the previous 1-bar build, I had Brawler as the main spammable. Brawler is great, but it only does about half the damage of Surprise Attack. And since I'm getting a free damage shield now from the updated Parabellum set, this is actually really nice. I can do more damage while being just as tanky, basically from that free damage shield. Of course, we talked about the armor shredding. Now, you're only going to get the active armor shred if you flank the enemy. So if you're able to turn on the enemy's side while they're casting or something like that, you will get the extra physical resistance debuff. But like I said in the intro, this procs Ravager currently, no matter where you're standing. So even if you're in front of the enemy, you should still be using Surprise Attack to proc Ravager as much as possible. And then our last normal ability on the 1-bar setup, we're going to go with Leeching Strikes. That's from Siphoning. Second to last ability here, and this is just our sustain and heal over time. Now I say heal over time, but you need to keep light and heavy attacking. You can see light and heavy attacks heal you for about 1600 health. They also restore stamina. Then we get the big burst of stamina at the end. So this is our sustain tool. And then again, if you're light attacking between every ability, you get that nice healing coming in, which is going to really help keep your health topped off while your damage shield is active. Now for the ultimate on the 1-bar setup, I think In-Cap Strike is still very good for soloing. This is from the Assassination skill line. So we do get a bit of extra magic and stamina sustain for this. We also get 20% bonus damage for 6 seconds. So you want to time this with your harder hitting abilities like Surprise Attack, like Relentless Focus. When you're ready to proc that, make sure you hit your In-Cap Strike first so that all of those hit for 20% more. So that is the basic 1-bar setup. Let me show you how that would work really quickly on just a basic boss here. So your buffs are very simple. Leeching Strikes, make sure Relentless is up, and then send in your pet. Remember, your pet's going to debuff that boss right away. I'm going to open with my AoE into those 4 surprise attacks, and I'll be buffed on Ravager at full weapon damage. And then you can just basically repeat it. If your ultimate's up, make sure you use that. Use your bow proc. And then, again, you want to surprise attack about 4 times in a row just to make sure that Ravager buff is always up. Keep your Shadow Pet up, and there you go. All right, so how would you extend the build if you want to run both bars for more damage? Very simple. Just pick up any bow for your back bar. I have the Maelstrom bow on currently, which is going to be a nice damage bonus on this build because of the proc there on the back bar, but you don't need it. You can go with any infused bow. Just any crafted bow is fine. As long as you have the infused trait with the weapon damage enchant, that's going to get our weapon damage as high as possible. So that's all you need to make the 2-bar setup work. Now, in terms of moving your skills around, some of these buffs are going to go to your back bar, specifically Leeching Strikes, Relentless Focus, and Dark Shade. So that really lets you run a lot more offensive abilities on both bars. We're going to start with adding an Execute here. Instead of Relentless Focus, you can go with Killer's Blade. That's the first skill from the Assassination skill line. So big damage when an enemy is under 25% health. This is really nice. Now keep in mind, this is a single target execute, so this is going to be mainly for, maybe solo boss encounters where there's only one boss that you need to worry about. If you're, let's say, doing more trash pulls, more AoE situations, you're going to need something that can do splash damage. In that case, since we're running a two-hander, you can definitely put on Reverse Slice. That does pretty good execute damage as well, but it also has the additional splash damage, so that's a very good option there. Now, instead of Dark Shade, you can just run a passive buff here. One of my favorites is going to be Camouflage Hunter. That is from the Fighters Guild skill line. That's the second to last ability here. Now, this does not stack with the Slime Craw helmet, so keep that in mind. The real reason why you would use this is for the passive weapon critical bonus. This means that you can run just basic stamina potions or tri potions. You don't have to worry about your weapon critical buff because you're always going to have it on the front bar. That's a really nice thing. I like to do that on my solo builds if I can. But like I said, the Minor Berserk is not going to stack. If you don't like that, then you can obviously run another heal here, something like Circle of Protection and the Ring of Preservation morph. This is a very nice ground-based heal, which also gives you minor protection and minor endurance. That's something that you can run there as well. Now you're going to leave Surprise Attack here. That is your main spammable ability. And then your final normal ability here is really a flex spot. I do like to run, if I'm running Camouflage Hunter, then I'll run Dark Cloak here. Dark Cloak is basically the same type of heal, but it's based on your character instead of a ground effect. So this gives you an 8-second heal, does give you minor protection as well, and it costs magicka instead of stamina. So this is actually a nice reason to run Dark Cloak. It doesn't drain your stamina pool at all, but it does provide a pretty nice heal over time still. From bar ultimate, I would leave in-cap strike there still. And then for our back bar bow, like we talked about, you can run more dots here on the back bar now. So Endless Hail on the back bar. That's from the bow skill line. You do want this ability just to proc your weapon damage enchant. Remember with that infused bow, it's going to make sure that extra weapon damage, it's going to be up all the time. So that's really good. We're going to move Dark Shade to the back bar like we talked about. Barb Trap on the back bar is going to be very nice for some extra dot damage, as well as the Minor Force buff. That's from the Fighters Guild skill line. That's the last ability that you get here. Very nice damage over time, like I said. And the extra 10% crit damage, that's really good as well. Still keep Leeching Strikes there on your back bar, again, for the extra passive healing, for the extra stamina sustain. And we have Relentless still on the back bar. We talked about that already. And then a very nice, easy to run ultimate on the back bar. It's going to be Soul Tether. This is from the Nightblade Siphoning skill line. This is an AoE burst ultimate that also does a stun and also does healing. So when you're doing some more challenging dungeons, if you're trying to clear through it yourself, I will definitely use Soul Tether on my back bar a little bit more just for the extra damage and the extra protection for my character. It's really nice. So that looks good. That's how I would run 2 bars on this setup. Let me go ahead and go through the rotation very quickly. Still, you have the same buffs. So that's Leeching Strikes, Relentless, and then you'll get your pet ready. And then you just do your back bar dots. So that's Barb Trap, Endless Hail, and then we're back on the front bar. Make sure you hit your AoE for the weapon damage, and then same thing, 4 surprise attacks. At that point, your bow should be ready to fire. If your ultimate's ready, go ahead and cast that, and then do your bow, and then it's just rebuff in your rotation. Very, very simple. All right, so we talked about the skills. What passives do you need to make this build work? Some of the Nightblade passives are actually getting buffs, so let's talk about those. Assassination, these are all pretty good. You now get the extra weapon damage if you're flanking an enemy, so that's something that you can do for more damage. Executioner actually got a very nice buff. Check this out. When an enemy dies within 2 seconds of being damaged, you restore about 2,000 magicka or stamina, whichever max is higher, so that's going to be stamina on this build. Now, it used to be the enemy had to die with an assassination ability. That's no longer the case. That's any ability that you're killing an enemy with is going to proc this extra almost 2,000 max stamina. That makes Nightblades so strong now in terms of sustain through like trash pulls and things like that. All you have to do is damage an enemy and you're getting a flat 1876. Hopefully they keep this passive as it is. I don't know at this point, but it's really strong for sustain. Pressure points is still good for the extra weapon and spell critical. Hemorrhage, you do get the bonus crit damage on both bars, so that's really nice as well. Shadow, let's talk about our defensive passives. So Refreshing Shadows, you get the extra recovery, that's great. Shadow Barrier, this is our armor buff, and you saw in the stat page, didn't have an armor buff active. With this, I'm going to be over 21,000 physical and spell resist on a medium armor setup, which is really nice. Again, we're not even considering our damage shield, free damage absorption there. But you do have to use a shadow ability to proc your armor. And in that case, we have plenty of them. We got Surprise Attack, our main spammable. We've got Shadow Image on the back bar. So you should have no problem keeping that buff up all the time. Dark Vigor, we got the extra max health. And then Dark Veil is good as well. Siphoning, these are more of your healing and magicka-focused passives, but Catalyst is great, you guys. After drinking a potion, you gain 20 ultimate. So the key about running with the Catalyst passive is make sure you cast your ultimate first before you chug a potion. If you chug your potion after the ultimate goes off, then you're up 20 ultimate already, and that in-cap strike is going to be back even faster. Magicka Flood is not bad. You get the extra max magicka we don't really need on a Stamina Nightblade, at least for this setup, so you could save 2 points there. Soul Siphoner is decent. You get the extra healing on both bars. And then Transfer is not bad too. You also get ultimate every 4 seconds when using your power extraction. In terms of weapon passives, you will want all of your two-handed passives, all of your bow passives, of course. Medium armor, all of these are great, with the exception of sneak. That's always an option. You don't need 2 points there if you're not sneaking. And we talked about Fighters Guild. Make sure you pick up all of these. That would be best. I mean, Slayer, you get the extra weapon damage. Banish the Wicked, you get the extra ultimate gen. And then Skill Tracker, your Fighters Guild abilities are going to deal 20% more damage. Very nice passives there. Now, Undaunted, even if you're soloing, you can get some extra stats from Undaunted Metal, so I would recommend picking that up if you have it. PvP passives and skills not needed for this build. Of course, you do want your racial skills. And then Alchemy Medicinal use for the extra potion duration. Now, in terms of CPs, this again was set up with solo gameplay in mind, so you may need to adjust these a little bit if you want to do more of a group-focused build. But in the green tree, we got 28 into Warlord, 49 into Tenacity, 49 Healthy, 75 Mooncalf, 34 into Shadow Ward and Tumbling. In the blue tree, just 19 into Blessed, 66 Mastered Arms, 9 into Physical Weapon, 26 Thaumaturge, 44 Precise Strikes, 50 into Piercing, and 56 into Mighty. In the red tree for our defensive, we got 81 Ironclad, 43 Hardy and Elemental Defender, 31 into Thick Skinned, and then 72 into Bastion. You guys, this is going to buff the Parabellum set, giving us almost 9,000 free damage shield every 10 seconds. Now, if you don't have as many champion points, if you're not at 810 yet, that's fine. Even if you can only drop like 20, 30, 40 points here, everything will buff that set, so it does make a difference. If you're curious about the outfit style on this character, let's go over that quickly. For chest, that's going to be Mazatoon. Legs is Zivkin. Shoulders will be Honor Guard. Shoes is going to be Red Guard, that's the first option. Gloves is going to be Barbaric Gloves, and then the waist, that's the Aldemiri Sash. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap up the solo Stamina Nightblade Brawler build for the Elder Scrolls Online. If you enjoyed the video today, don't forget to crush that like button for me. It definitely helps out the channel. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, too, for more builds just like this one. I post new builds and guides every single week right here on YouTube. You can make sure you turn on those notifications, too, so you don't miss anything. Now, if you're interested in supporting the channel further, there'll be links to my social media, as well as the brand new website, all down below in the description, so check those out. Speaking of the website, I will have a written version of this build there as soon as the video goes live, so make sure you check that out too, in case you need to refer to that later. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're doing well, stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.